Hey, what's up guys, it's SirTagCR, and today we're going to be showing you how to master Logbait. So Logbait has been around forever guys, and it's been one of the most consistent and skillful decks throughout every single meta. So this Logbait deck is built off of the premise that the Princess, the Goblin Barrel, and the Goblin Gang all demand a response from the log. If your opponent elects to log one of those units, then the other units are going to get a lot more versatility, and they're going to become increasingly harder for your opponent to deal with. With this deck, I would encourage all players to actually drop their princess in the back of the map and try to stack up as many princesses as possible. If you drop your princess in the back of the map, your opponent will be much more apt to log it instead of using units to kill the princess. After my opponent uses their log on a princess, or they just don't have it in their deck, say they have Zap, I really like pressuring with a Knight plus Goblin Gang, or I really like pressuring with a Knight plus Goblin Barrel. And what that does is, it's kind of like a graveyard. The Knight will be tanking the tower damage, and then the Goblins are able to just thrive and take the tower out. Notice what happens here on the left hand side. Because he did log my princess, he just completely loses his tower in one foul swoop. Whether your opponent is running Golem or Three Musketeers decks, or any deck with pump for the matter, if they end up pumping up, guys, you gotta make sure that you always keep up with them and rocket it. End up allowing a pump to stay on the field for too long, they can overrun you because of their huge elixir advantage. Since you guys will be rocketing the pumps at all points versus Three Musketeer decks, you will not be having the rocket for the Two Musketeers. I really like using the Princess plus Log combination on the Two Musketeers, so by using the Princess and the Log combination on top of the Musketeers, that allows you to save your Knight and your Goblin Gang for their supporting units. Whether it's a Bandit or a Pencil, aka the Battle Ram, you really want to save your Knight and your Goblin Gang for the supporting units. Alright guys, so now let's take a look at a situation where my opponent pumps up, but I actually don't have Rocket to punish him. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be applying a ton of pressure right now. I'm going to be going hard in the paint. Notice where I drop my units. So because I drop a Knight in front of my Princess, he either has to log the Princess or actually drop a flying unit to get at it. I end up going for a Goblin Barrel right on top of the Elixir Collector, and I go for a left lane Goblin Gang. I stagger my units really well right there. The dude has log and he doesn't even know what to hit with it because I staggered things so well. So that's one of the things that you want to be doing. When you're applying pressure, make sure that you're staggering your units as well. Notice how I never dropped my Goblin Gang right in the same lane as my Princess, and I never dropped a Goblin Barrel in the same lane as either of those things. So this man really was not allowed any value with the log, and he was just completely confused in that situation. Alright guys, so let's talk about starting plays with this deck. My favorite starting play is actually saucing out a Goblin Barrel to the side of the tower. I don't like starting the game off with my Goblin Barrel already tornadoed to the King Tower. The second best play is starting your Princess stacking in the back. The third best play is starting an Ice Spirit at the bridge because it has little to no consequences and it's a very cyclical card. So my fourth and fifth favorite cards this cycle would definitely be the Goblin Gang at the bridge and then the Knight in the back. Those are cards that I typically like retaining for defense, so that's why I'm so apprehensive about cycling them, and that's why they fall into the fourth and fifth slot. Alright guys, so let's examine the matchup against Lava Loon. As soon as you see a Lava Hound placed in the back, you want to rush opposite lane. You want to make sure that in single elixir, he did not have enough elixir to drop a balloon behind the Lava Hound. He had to dedicate a significant response to responding to the Goblin Gang plus Knight. And that will simply just allow me to clean up his push with just an Inferno Tower and Princess. And these are the type of interactions that you want to keep having throughout the game. You always want to pressure opposite lane. You never really want to allow him to build up his big parade push. So eventually in double elixir, your opponent will be able to piece together a Lava Hound balloon push. In that event, you want to be saving your Inferno Tower and your Rocket. So you're going to be dropping your Inferno Tower first, you're going to wait for the Lava Hound pups to pop, and then you're going to rocket the pups and the balloon all in one hit. That cleans up the push very nicely, and you're going to try to repeat that interaction as many times as you possibly can. Notice I do it again right here. I don't even need the Ice Spirit. I'm just going to rocket it again, and it literally denies all damage. You just got to be precise with your rocket. You got to make sure that you're actually hitting all the pups with your rocket as well. So since this is a continuous positive elixir trade with your opponent, if you keep repeating this transaction and they never break through, you can eventually get your opponent into rocket range, or you'll just end up straight up finishing off your opponent with your Goblin Gang and your Goblin Barrel. This is a matchup that you should never really lose with Logbait if you play it correctly. So the matchup against Golem can be very similar to the Lava Loon matchup, especially if they have Inferno Dragon. You really don't have a great answer to Inferno Dragon with Logbait, and Rocket can really end up being very clutch in dire situations like this when all you need to do is defend and knocking out the Inferno Dragon. It just cleans up exceedingly well. Rocket is really good at cleaning up all the support units behind a Golem, especially if they're all clumped up. So now guys, let's talk about the Logbait Mirror matchup. The biggest thing in this matchup is definitely keeping your Princess alive at all costs. Even if you're going to be dropping a Goblin Gang in front of your Princess in some situations, it's going to be pretty decent. Might force a log out of your opponent. If you're able to identify that your opponent's running Logbait as well, make sure to take advantage of that. Rocket princesses, rocket knights behind towers, it's very difficult to punish with log bait. Your only reliable source of damage is going to be dropping the princess at the bridge, which is not advised because you're going to lose the princess battle and you'll just lose the game. And your other source of damage is goblin barrel, which is easily denied if you just hold on to log. So at this point in time, I saw a goblin gang, I saw ice spirit, I saw knight, and I saw princess. I was able to successfully determine that this guy was running log bait as well. And look at this play. And look, I'm not going to get punished for this play. He's going to go for a goblin barrel. It's going to get logged immediately. And honestly, we're going to be even elixir, and I'm even going to have a princess on them. So make sure to go and capitalize on those rockets whenever you can. Another big thing is, as I said before, guys, keep those princesses alive. He is going to be very triggered right now. If you keep your princesses alive, it's going to make your opponent do very cost-inefficient trades. I think I'm even going to try to defend my princess again right here. I'm going to go in for a second princess to snipe his. His princess retargets because mine's a little bit closer, and his was originally hitting my knight. So at this point in time, I even have two princesses on the field. I make him use his goblin gang, and I'm just in a really phenomenal situation. So if you guys are winning interactions on the map constantly and you feel like you can go in for a rocket, I definitely advise you to do so. Notice how I was able to go in for a rocket, and I really didn't get punished too hard right here. And rocketing out your opponent is really the only way that you can feasibly finish off the game unless someone makes a huge misplay. If you keep your princesses alive more so than your opponent, you're eventually going to have more elixir because they're going to have to deal with your princesses in less conventional ways, and then you're going to have more ability to sauce out more rockets and eventually win the game based off of that. Alright guys, let's jump into a game against a guy that decided running 3 spells was just the adequate amount. This man has NATO, he's got log, and he also has lightning. So this is definitely going to be a very frustrating matchup for me. But we're going to see how I maneuver this. I'm going to be dropping an ice spirit at the bridge. As I said, you're not going to be punished from it. I like dropping the princess instead of the knight because you want to save the knight to actually guard or defend. In this case, I'm going to be guarding the miner from attacking my princess. I did a really great job right there. Actually has to spell it, or he has to do an inefficient response that he doesn't want to be doing. In this case, he elected to drop an electro wizard. I also am going in for a log right there to make sure that the Electro Wizard does not end up hitting my princess, and I end up going in for a Goblin Gang in the opposite lane because I don't want to give him log value, I don't want to give him NATO value, I didn't want to give him any spell value right there. And guys, the entire time my princess is still alive, it survived the giant push with the Electro Wizard, it survived the miner. He's incredibly frustrated at this point. And notice how I go in for my Goblin Barrel at a very calculated moment. It takes him 4 cards to get back, and he certainly isn't back to log, and he certainly isn't back to NATO because he just used them. So I go in for the knight right there simply because the knight is going to be tanking for the Goblin Barrel. And that allowed me to do a lot more damage simply because the tower was targeting the knight instead of the goblins. So I end up making a slight misplay right here. I end up trying to log it back and actually trying to make it retarget onto the Inferno Tower. I end up clipping the tower, but unfortunately the Executioner gets a swipe on my tower. So a big thing to consider is, like, imagine I didn't get that Goblin Barrel damage early on. Imagine I wasn't able to defend my princess for some reason. The only reliable way of getting damage in this instance is actually spelling out your opponent with rocket or log, or slowly chipping away that way, or dropping princesses at the bridge. When they have so many spells, it's really hard to depend on your Goblin Barrel to get all your damage. But still, I'm going to be trying throughout the entire game, even if I'm not able to. I would still try to defend my princesses. I would still try to make it happen because you want to make sure that there's a chance that they'll waste their spells. Since he's being offensive, I'm literally laying down a consequence. If he doesn't take my tower, he's going to get severely punished by that Goblin Barrel. And let's see what happens right here. My Goblin Barrel is going to get Thrive on the tower, do a significant amount of damage. His Giant gets DPS'd, so both situations just did not work out so well for him. And the Executioner is coming down again for him, and he's trying to facilitate another push. I'm dropping my princess. I'm going to be cycling an Ice Spear because I really want to get back to my Inferno Tower immediately. And notice where I place my Inferno Tower. So this Inferno Tower placement does not allow him to lightning. He is not able to hit the Inferno Tower and my Princess Tower on the right hand side, and that's a pretty big thing to consider. Another thing is the Giant was walking back towards the Inferno Tower instead of towards my tower, and it actually would have to, if it killed the Inferno Tower, then it would have to walk back where it came from. So it was definitely really good how I abused the pathing of the Giant in that situation. Going in for a log and Ice Spirit, that's another interact. So let's go over that interaction that just happened. I ended up dropping a log, and then I immediately soon after dropped an Ice Spirit. The log will stun the Electro Wizard, allowing the Ice Spirit to not get targeted by the Electro Wizard, and then the Ice Spirit will end up stunning the Electro Wizard for an even longer period of time, allowing my tower to end up finishing the Electro Wizard before it gets a shot off on my tower. So that's a very useful interaction, especially with log bait, because if you think about it, I used 3 elixir and I also cycled 2 cards. It's going to be a +1 trade, and also it allows me to cycle back quicker to my Goblin Barrel because I just cycled 2 cards instead of 1. Alright, so let's jump right back into the game. We can notice that the log even splashed onto the left-hand side. Goblin Barrel is going on the left-hand side as well. Notice how working on the left-hand side the entire time. I know that I can take in the right-hand side with a goblin or with a log at any point, so it wasn't really necessary for me to continuously work on it. I kind of just made him wait the last second, and we ended up taking that dub and sauced out of noobs because, you know, the man literally had 3 spells, so you gotta assert dominance somehow. You definitely will not win this matchup if he plays perfectly, but I'm always trying to improve minor interactions to increase my odds of winning these matchups. And forcing mistakes out of my opponents definitely helps. The way I like to look at these types of matchups is kind of like poker. You're always trying to increase your odds of winning. Obviously, this matchup is incredibly hard and I won't win it every single time, but those are some nice tips and tricks that can get you through it. Alright guys, let's quickly go over how to deal with the Mega Knight. My favorite response to the Mega Knight will always be the Inferno Tower. Look at here, I don't even have enough elixir for my Knight yet, and I'm still going to be able to defend this pretty well. So typically, if you have enough elixir, you want to sauce out you either want to sauce out the Goblin Gang or the Knight on top of the Electro Wizard. Make sure that the Electro Wizard doesn't actually end up finessing you. But in that instance, I was at like 1 elixir, I cycled an Ice Spirit, and then I eventually got to my Knight to make sure that I didn't lose my tower. So I drop an Inferno Tower right here, and he goes in for a Mega Knight plus Zap, and he still doesn't even break through. So that's just the power of the Inferno Tower compared to what the Mega Knight can do. If I just drop an Ice Spirit, nothing's really going to happen. It's a very reliable counter to the Mega Knight, time and time again. I'm going to do it again right here. You'll see the interaction. I'm going to drop an Ice Spirit in case he zaps again, and he's never going to break through. So lastly, guys, I'm going to showcase the Hidden Rocket Barrel. This is a gimmicky play that allows you to get back in the game if your opponent is not able to see the barrel. I would really only consider this play in dire straits when I have no other opportunity to get back in the game. So let's roll it, and let's see his arrows just sit in his hand the entire time. It's pretty glorious, guys, and feels bad, man, for him. I'm going to have my rocket barely clipping the tower in the front and my goblin barrel barely clipping the tower in the back, and that's how you disguise it. And you let it go really fast in quick succession of each other, like that. Notice how that's hidden just immaculately. You barely see it until the very end. It's too little too late at the end. Alright guys, that's actually where I'm going to end the video for today. I hope you enjoyed this log bait guide. Now I'm going to go spend a whole bunch of time editing it. If you guys enjoyed the vid, make sure to sauce me a fat sub and a thumbs up. As always guys, thanks for chilling with me, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Peace out.